All right, guys, how's it going? Miss Christopherson again, and this is one of your last videos for me from for a little while. Okay, tomorrow Miss Hartstock's going to be working through some stuff with you guys, but today we're going to talk a little bit about cell respiration too. Yeah, let's get cruising. All right. Hope everybody's doing okay today. If you hear loud banging, loud weird noises, they're actually working on an apartment around me, so it's pretty interesting. All right, so here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about aerobic respiration. Okay, so let's review a little bit. All right, so what is the whole point of cell respiration? This is actually what we started to talk about yesterday. The whole point of cell respiration is actually to take that sandwich that I was talking about, okay, that you made in the kitchen, and you're going to break that down into energy. So please remember that photosynthesis, what that part is doing is making the food, making the glucose. And then once you make that food, you have to consume it. And that's the whole point of cell respiration. Now, we didn't do a whole lot of that yesterday, and that's because, well, we just didn't. I broke it up into two. So today we're going to tear that up, okay? So again, cell respiration is a process in which glucose, which is the food, is broken down into a usable form of energy, which is ATP, okay? All right. So, cell respiration summative formula. Let's see if any of you guys can do that from memory. You take a few. You don't have to hit pause, Miss Hartsock. I'll just wait. See if any of you guys can do that from memory. What do I need? What do I make? Okay. All right, so let's just go with it, okay? First and foremost, what we have here, obviously what we need, and here I'm giving you the formula. I like trying to spice it up a little bit. Okay, we've got to have glucose, which is C6H12O6, okay? The other one that we need is going to be oxygen, all right? And actually, you're going to see that today, all right? How you can always remember that you need the oxygen is this is called cell respiration. Hopefully you guys think when you hear the word respiration, you think of breathing. All right, so that's kind of a big thing here to show you that oxygen is going to be a big component of it. Okay, so what do we end up making with this? All right, what we end up making is that we end up producing carbon dioxide. Okay, we end up producing good old carbon dioxide. All right, we're going to make water, which is H2O. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to generate ATP. All right, so in that definition that you guys just wrote down, we're going to take glucose and we're going to break it down into ATP, okay? The respiration part right here is what we need here, okay? All right, so let's review a little bit about what we talked about yesterday in anaerobic respiration, okay? Now, this process takes place in every single living thing in the whole wide world. So this is why I have my simple organisms here and my complex organisms there. So this glucose we get through eating, through consuming, okay? And what these guys are going to do is we're simply just going to break that glucose in half, bloop, and make it into this pyruvate, which is 2,3 carbon structures. Okay, so snap it in half. Now, anytime I'm going to break any of those bonds that make up glucose, I'm going to have a release of energy, which allows us to make ATP. Okay, and like I said, that's a complex process. I'm simplifying it tremendously. All right, and if you ever want to talk about it, we can definitely talk about it. All right, so that's what's going on there. Now, what we do with this pyruvate is going to depend on who and what you are. These simple organisms, this ATP is enough, okay? Enough for them. So what they're going to do is they're going to take this pyruvate and they're going to get rid of it through the process of fermentation. So if you remember, we had the lactic acid fermentation, we've had the alcohol fermentation, okay? The alcohol, the CO2, the lactic acid, that is basically pyruvate as a waste product. It's trash, okay? The zebra over here, or us, because we're complex organisms, or actually, to be honest, guys, anybody but the bacteria and the yeast that is going to do this. We break that pyruvate, break the glucose down into pyruvate, make that 1 ATP. That's not enough for us. So what we're going to do is that we're going to ship it to this handy organelle that we have known as the mitochondria. Okay? These guys can't do that because they don't have a mitochondria. Okay? Just kind of a FYI type thing. Okay? All right, so let's review again what's happening here. In anaerobic, we took our glucose, and I just was noticing when I called up the notes to follow along with you that one of the lines was messed up, and if it's messed up, I'm sorry about that. Hopefully you guys can kind of work with it, okay? So we're going to take the glucose, we're going to break it down into pyruvate, okay? Now, what we do with that pyruvate is going to depend on who and what we're looking for. If we're going through fermentation, this is going to be the simple organisms, the 2 types of fermentation, which I don't even think I do that. But pyruvate is going to go to fermentation, or it can go to the mitochondria through aerobic respiration. These are the 2 pathways, all right, depending if they're simple or complex. And the 2 types of fermentation are going to be lactic acid and alcohol, okay? So again, just kind of giving you a flow chart to maybe help you out, all right? So this right here is going to be anaerobic, all right? And this right here obviously is aerobic, okay? All right, so let's briefly start talking about what is going on with aerobic respiration, all right? What is it? It's basically going to be respiration that occurs with oxygen, okay? So you guys can just simply put down in your notes, needs oxygen, oxygen present, okay? How I remember this one is that if you go to an aerobic class, you are obviously working out, you're working hard, all right? And you're breathing a lot. So you got to breathe in a lot of oxygen if you're taking an aerobics class. That is if you are doing it correctly. Aerobic exercise, okay? So respiration that occurs with oxygen, okay? All right. Now, the organisms that undergo this one, what we put down for that one, or what I put down is complex organisms, which actually isn't very specific, okay? What I mean by that is basically any and everything but bacteria and yeast, okay? So that's kind of a huge scale there. So it's anything and everything but bacteria that's going to be undergoing this process, okay? So they're complex organisms. So it's going to be pretty much be a lot of things, okay? All right. Or, you know, if I were to break this down even more specifically, anything that has a mitochondria. How about that? All right. So here we go. Let's talk a little bit about the mitochondria. If you guys recall, and I think we're going to get to that here in a second, so I won't give that to you right now. The mitochondria is this cool structure right here that is found in both animal and plant cells, okay? If you were to look at those 2 diagrams right there, that's actually what it looks like. Now, you guys need to be able to tell the difference between a mitochondria and a chloroplast, okay? Because on your next test that you guys are going to have, I'm going to ask you that, all right? Mitochondria kind of looks like it has a worm inside of it, all right? Let's go over the parts. This whole thing right here is the good old mitochondria, all right? So let's label it that. That whole structure is the mitochondria, all right? Now, we have several things going on inside. The cristae, okay? And I think you guys have arrows on your guy. You can draw your own new arrows. It's up to you. Doesn't really matter. But cristae is basically going to be, do you see this little double line that I'm following here? This double line that looks like the outermost part of the worm? That is actually going to be the cristae. It's this whole folded thing inside of there. It's the folded inner membrane. Okay, the folded inner membrane. That is going to be your cristae, all right? Inside, if you guys notice that gray area right there, okay, that gray area is actually going to be known as the matrix, okay? So the matrix is just that gray space inside of there, okay? So the matrix, again, is just the space that's inside of the mitochondria. We got to have names for everything, right? So it's the space inside of there. Okay? All right. So next, let's kind of review what is going on with the mitochondria. Basically, the whole point of it is to break down the sugar, what's remaining of the sugar, down into ATP, which is the usable form of energy. We also refer to it as the powerhouse of the cell. This was back from your cell unit. Okay, so hopefully some of you guys remember that. So it breaks down the sugar into ATP. It is our usable form of energy. All right, that is the mitochondria. All right, and again, if you notice, it's got the squiggles inside of there. There's that inner membrane, which is the cristae, okay? And then the space inside of there is going to be the matrix, okay? All right, so let's break this down, okay? You guys have this in your notes right there. If you could add this to basically the same location that you see in your notes, okay? Take a second to do that, please, for me. Go ahead and fill this in your notes, okay? So this is what we talked about yesterday. This is anaerobic respiration. We got our glucose, and we're breaking it down into pyruvate. Now I forgot one thing. I forgot to put ATP right here. So if you guys could add ATP, that would be fantabulous. Okay, so put ATP right there. Okay, so this right here is anaerobic, and if you're feeling crazy, do like a little squiggle thing and say anaerobic if you're feeling crazy. Okay, all right. Now, if you notice, I said to the mitochondria here, and then it's just going to shoot inside of there. Okay, this is a great big huge mitochondria. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and label the parts of the mitochondria. What we're going to have down here, if you guys notice, right here, let's put down the outer membrane. Okay, I believe your arrows are going to be about the same as mine. So here's the outer membrane, kind of the lime green looking part. Okay. The cristae is right here, your inner membrane. Okay, cristae. And if you guys don't have the arrows in your notes, you can draw them in. All right, and this down here is pointing to that yellow space. That's going to be your matrix, and this is down here at the bottom. So your matrix is right there. Okay, so the outer membrane, the inner membrane, and the matrix. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the aerobic part. We said that the pyruvate is going to shoot inside of the mitochondria. All right, so let's shoot it in. Whoa, why did it do that? Okay, let's shoot it inside of there. Okay, to show you again what I did, shoot it inside of there. Shoot it inside of there. Okay, so you guys actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this one. So let's go ahead and put this by number 1. All right, the pyruvate moves into the matrix of the mitochondria. All right, so the pyruvate moves into the matrix of the mitochondria. Okay, that's where our pyruvate's going to be. And then draw this in there. Okay, now I didn't label it as pyruvate. If you think that you're going to forget that that's pyruvate, if I were you guys, I would label it as pyruvate. Okay, so you can put down pyruvate down here. All right, so that is pyruvate moves into the mitochondria. Poof, it's hanging out right there. Okay, all right. So number 2 that we got here, number 2, all right, what we got going on here is going to be something that should look fairly familiar to you, but a little bit opposite, okay? So go ahead and draw this great big huge long line, all right, draw the long line, okay? And what I'm going to do here is we got oxygen coming in because this is aerobic, okay? And what's going to happen is that it's actually going to combine with one of the carbons from pyruvate. And it's hard to show on this, so this is a little bit of a trickier animation. So what's going to happen is basically one of these carbons from pyruvate is going to break off, combine with this oxygen, and leave as CO2. All right? So you got an O2 coming in, you're going to break off a carbon, and it's going to leave as carbon dioxide. So where does this oxygen come from? It comes from respiration, from breathing. This is why we call it cell respiration. So we inhale. Every time you inhale, you get oxygen in your blood. Your blood delivers the oxygen to all of your cells. And this is happening inside of us right now as we speak. We're going to break off that carbon, and it's going to leave as CO2. How do we get rid of CO2? Anytime you exhale, okay? So what's kind of cool here, if you guys think about it, is that when you guys are exhaling, you're actually exhaling carbons from the food that you have once consumed. What? You're exhaling that chicken biscuit you had yesterday morning. Well, that's a long time. Or that piece of pizza that you had for lunch. Okay? Pretty cool. All right? So carbon is broken off and pyruvate and combines with oxygen and leaves as CO2. Okay? All right, next one here. All right, is now that we've broken off that carbon, okay, remember when we broke glucose in half to make pyruvate and released some energy? Same thing's going to happen here. We broke off another carbon, so we're going to generate some ATP. So pyruvate is basically energy. That's all that it is, okay? So when we break off a carbon, we're going to make ATP. Now I'm getting my proportions of ATP all screwed up. There actually is a set number that we make in these things, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to get kind of the general idea here, okay? So again, inhale, break off the carbon, exhale, getting rid of your pizza from lunch, okay? Generate ATP, all right? All right, let's go to number 4, which I think should I do next, okay? let's put down that the process is going to continue a total of 6 times, okay? And basically what we're going to do here is that we're going to create a ton of ATP, all right? Many, many, many ATPs are going to be created, all right? So the process is going to continue a total of 6 times. Many ATPs are going to be created, all right? So this is where the diagram's going to get a little crazy, all right? So once you guys write that down, pens and pencils down. Once you write that, pens and pencils down, okay? All right. So let's do this. Here we have 1, okay? Another oxygen's going to come in, break off that carbon, which again, I wish that I could show you guys, okay? I guess I need to fix that. And leaves a CO2 generating ATP. Nobody should be drawing, okay? Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale, generate ATP. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So if you check it out, total of 6, all right? And if you notice, I just put a crap load of ATPs up there. I've been showing you that it's pretty proportional, that for any time I break off a carbon, just 1 ATP is generated. And that's a little bit misleading, but you'll see the whole point here in a second, okay? All right, so why don't you guys go ahead and draw this in. Show 6, pick up your pencils, and draw 5 more O2s coming in, 5 more CO2s leaving, and just put a bunch of ATPs, okay? Please make sure that you put more than 6, just a bunch of them. All right, put a bunch of them. And hopefully I got some examples of how this works, and maybe this might help out a lot. This is a pretty complex process, okay? And really, you guys just need to know the general idea of what's happening, okay? All right, so pow, 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 pow. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this up here. Miss Hartsock, if you can hit pause and let them finish drawing this. You guys can take a 2-minute stretch break, okay? And then we'll come back and kind of apply this to some things, okay? So go ahead and hit pause, please. All right, welcome back. Let's try to relate this to something that maybe might help, or maybe it might make it a little bit more confusing. Who knows, okay? All right, so here's kind of an idea here, all right? And actually, before I go to there, actually, hold on. Let me look at something. I don't think I did that. Okay, so if you guys notice, 6 is the magic number again. Oh, Lord, gotta click through all this, okay? 6 is the magic number. Why is it 6? Because I have 6 carbons in pyruvate, okay? This actually should look pretty similar to photosynthesis. If you think about it, why 6? Because we were making glucose. I needed 6 CO2s. I need those carbons to generate this. This is basically the exact opposite of what we just did in the Calvin cycle, okay? All right, so here's a big question. What would happen if oxygen was not available for aerobic respiration? All right, so really what I want you guys to do is just kind of stare up here for a second, all right? We're going to break through this process. This right here is anaerobic. I take my glucose, break it in half, and make pyruvate, okay? Now, oxygen is basically the key to the mitochondria. That's what I want you guys to think about, okay? Oxygen is the key to the mitochondria. So basically, when I have that key, I can get into the mitochondria and make all this ATP, all right? So what would happen if I didn't have that key? Could I get into the mitochondria and generate this ATP? The answer is no. What you would be stuck with is you would be stuck with this, okay? So if I didn't have that key, basically you can't generate ATP and you would be stuck with this pyruvate. Now here's what's so cool about this is that your body is just not going to say, oh, hey, look, I got some pyruvate hanging out. Awesome. We'll just kind of keep it around for when, we do start breathing. And guys, when I say that you don't have oxygen, it doesn't mean that you're not breathing. Obviously, that is the biggest component. But it could also be when you just start exercising again and you notice that you get out of breath a little bit fast, or you do something strenuous and you start breathing really hard. When you start breathing really hard, that is basically your body saying, I need oxygen, I need oxygen, I need oxygen, which can lead to kind of some interesting things. So what happens is that your body has got to do something with this. So it says, all right, I can't shove it into the mitochondria right back here. So what I'm going to do is it's waste. I can't keep it around. And we switch into lactic acid fermentation. All right. Now, is this bad? No. If you've ever had a sore muscle, which again, I hope everybody in here has had a sore muscle. If not, as I said before, please get outside and play a little bit. Sore muscles are sore because let's say that you're lifting weights. We'll go with the boys, all right? You're trying to bench press something that is you know, I don't know, your max weight. I don't know how you guys phrase all that stuff. All right. But basically, when you're exercising, you know, you're cruising along, you're like, oh yeah, I'm getting this, pow, pow, pow. Let's say that's when you're bench pressing 200 pounds. I don't know what you bench press, okay? This is good. But you decide to go up to 250 or 275, right? So you start off okay. You're like, I got this, I got this, I got this. But eventually you fatigue your muscles where you can't get oxygen there fast enough to make this ATP, all right? Because it's hard, it's strenuous on your body. So what it does is it goes to lactic acid fermentation, builds up in your muscles, and that's what makes you sore. Way long time ago, I was ridiculously in shape and lifting all sorts of weights. And I remember I was doing all sorts of stuff with my legs, and I got a little bit too crazy with my legs and got a little bit too much lactic acid built up in there, and they were a little bit too sore. I couldn't walk. My kids picked on me so bad. This was years ago. And I imagine that maybe some of my boys or girls out there actually have had that happen too, where you end up doing too many squats or I don't know, all the crap anymore, but all those things and your legs get sore and you can't walk. That's because of the lactic acid. Okay. Now, one thing I wanted to show you here is I don't know if you guys have ever heard of something called hitting the wall. All right. Hitting the wall is not literally hitting the wall. This is going to be where we as humans can push our bodies ridiculously. Like with my sore legs, I could have still gone in there and done some more. It wouldn't have felt too good. All right. But we push our bodies pretty hard. It eventually gets to a point where your body's like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And it stops. You end up getting too much lactic acid built up there. You are getting nothing to your muscles. They've tapped out all that ATP. They can't work anymore. So they stop working. All right. And that's basically what's happening here with hitting the wall. Now, hitting the wall basically is going to happen with marathon runners or like Ironman competitions where you're doing very, very strenuous, crazy things to your body. All right. And this is kind of funny. Sorry about the quality of this video. But if you notice, people start running kind of weird, looking like it hurts a little bit. It gets worse. Body's starting to shut down. Bet you that hurts so bad. Okay, wait till you see this guy coming up behind her. Oh, ouch. Hold on. She's struggling. Check this dude out. Oh, can't do it anymore. Can't go. Nope. Muscles are saying nope. That's hitting the wall, you guys. There is zero ATP in their muscles. They don't work as well because this is the end of the race. And marathons are, dear God, that's bajillions of miles. Crazy, right? So cool. Crazy stuff, okay? So that is called hitting the wall, all right? Kind of cool stuff, all right? This is pretty silly right here. Not enough ATP, begin lactic acid fermentation. You gotta love big kitties, knocked out, okay? Good times, all right? So that is aerobic respiration in a nutshell. Now, basically what I want you guys to get out of that is that in aerobic respiration, you're going to produce way more ATP than you will in anaerobic, okay? That's kind of one of the big, huge themes, okay? All right. So I am just going to briefly explain what you guys are going to do next, okay? It doesn't specifically have to do with aerobic respiration, but what it's doing is that it's kind of putting together photosynthesis and cell respiration, everything that we just talked about here, and it's a gizmo. Now you're going to have two gizmos back to back. I don't typically do that. You know, obviously the times are a little bit tough now, but these gizmos are amazing. They do a really good job of teaching the concepts to you. That is if you pay attention and do it. All right. So this is going to be the cell energy cycle, or basically, again, you're going to play with photosynthesis and cell respiration. So it says explore the process of photosynthesis and respiration that occur within plant cells. The cyclical nature of the two processes can be constructed visually, and photosynthesis and respiration equations can be balanced in descriptive numerical format. So again, it's going to review everything. All right. So you guys have done gizmos with me before, and I think you did one while I was out last week. Miss Witzenberg gave one for you guys to do. Please remember to log in. Okay. Miss Hartsock will give you guys the login. Sometimes once you log in, everything will disappear. Like you'll just get this really random list. What you guys can do is go right up here to search and type in whatever the heading is to the sheet that Miss Hartsock's going to give you. So you can just type in cell energy cycle and this will pop up, okay? But you have to log in order for it to work. Pay attention to what you're doing here, okay? This is a pretty valuable thing, and it's linking the two things together. And tomorrow we're going to do an experiment, and I'm not going to talk to you tomorrow, so I guess I can show this to you. The carbon cycle is going to be linking together both photosynthesis and cell respiration. And the one that you guys are going to be doing with is you're going to be playing with plants and snails. This was a lab that I used to actually do with my kids, but it was really tricky because it's hard to keep it controlled. And I ended up killing a bunch of snails, which is never a good thing. This is exactly identical to what we would do in a lab, except you get, you get way better results. Okay. All right, guys. So this is going to be it for a while. I hope everything's okay. And yeah, I know, again, let me just talk about grades really quick. A lot of you guys are freaking out about grades. I am ridiculously behind on them. I plan to get pretty much everything done tomorrow that I can, so be checking your grades online, okay? I apologize about that. Yeah, and that's all I got to say, okay? Hope all's well, and I'll talk to you guys later. All right, bye.